This is Jodie. Jodie is a former student of mine from Creek, and thank you so much, Jodie, for saying you would do this for us. Jodie, it's all for you. Talk to about.
Okay, yeah, thank you for having me. So I was in your guys' shoes 5 years ago now. I graduated from Creek in 2016, and I took the medical careers class fall of 2015. And when I was in your guys' shoes, I was kind of 50-50 on going into medicine. I knew I wanted to do something medically related. Maybe it was research, maybe it was pharmaceuticals, maybe it was, medical technology. And being in this class actually kind of taught me that I wanted to be a doctor, and that is like what I was meant to do. So if you guys are either questioning going into medicine or you're like, I am going into medicine, trust me, by being in this class, you are doing the right thing. Some of the advice that I've gotten in this class, I carried with me through my undergraduate career into now. And it has helped me get to graduating through UT Austin, and then now I'm going to Baylor College of Medicine. I just finished my first week, so I'm not a full expert on medical school, but I do consider myself a little bit of an expert on getting into medical school. So in this presentation, I'm sorry I didn't make like a presentation slide to make this a little bit easier, but I want to explain to you what I did over my 4 years in undergrad that helped me get into med school, just so that you guys have a general idea of like maybe some things that you can do and what was helpful and maybe not so helpful for me. And then I'm going to go through a jack of all trades, advice I wish I knew going into undergrad, or things that I did at undergrad that really helped me get into medical school, get the interviews for medical school. So I will explain like my 4 years in medical school, not in medical school. I'll explain my 4 years in my undergrad. And so I went to UT Austin, and my 4 years, I really focused on my academics. So one thing about med school, they'll tell you, is your GPA is really, really important. I did a degree in biochemistry because I was a nerd. I loved biology and I loved chemistry. So I was like, put the two together. I love it. So you don't have to exactly do that major to get into medical school. That is not the only major that you can do. You can do any major. I have friends that did Spanish. I had friends who did political science. I had friends who did the most random majors and still got into medical school. However, there are certain degrees you can do that are a little bit easier to get all the pre-med requisites that you need to get into medical school. Usually the more sciencey majors are a little bit easier to have that overlap of what you need for your major and for medical school. But if you're really passionate about Spanish, major in Spanish and then take all those pre-med requisites. To figure out what prerequisites you need, I would go into your pre-med office. They will have one at your college, and they can walk you through a tentative schedule of what you should be doing. So on top of academics, the thing in like to getting into medical school that's really important is taking a test called the MCAT. And I could talk to you all day about the MCAT, but honestly, you're not going to worry about it until your sophomore or junior year. Just know in the back of your mind that someday you're going to be taking this really scary 8-hour test, and you will get your advice from your pre-med advisors and from your other peers on how to best do the MCAT when the time comes that you need to worry about it. So please throw that worry out of your mind. I knew when I was in medical careers, I was already thinking about the MCAT. Just throw that out of your mind. Trust me, it's not helpful. Just get rid of it for now. Focus on academics. And then the other thing that's going to get you to medical school is your extracurricular activities. So I'm going to walk you through my 4 years of my extracurricular activities. I followed a rule that I'd call the additive rule. So about each semester, I would add something new to my resume. And that doesn't mean that I would do one thing for 6 months and then drop that and then do another thing for 6 months. I would do one thing for 6 months and then add another thing. The reason I did that is because when you're in your undergraduate career and you're starting in college, studying you're not a great studier yet. Like, you're probably a good studier. You go to Creek. Trust me, you probably are a good studier. In college, you definitely become better. and you become a great studier. And over time in your undergraduate career, you get better at studying, and therefore you have more free time to add more extracurricular activities. And so when I went to UT Austin my first semester, I added a pre-med club. I joined a sorority, which was, please join fun clubs. Don't just do only pre-med things. Sorry, my email is always going to be going off. So I did a sorority pre-med club, and I volunteered at an animal shelter because, you need some pet therapy. I did that for 6 months, and then I added a leadership position in my sorority 6 months later for my second semester of freshman year. And then sophomore year, I applied for a job to be a scribe in the emergency room, and I did that for 2 years. If you can get a job as a scribe, like, this is a plug, I actually got this plug from Mr. Stirrup 5 years ago to try to apply to become a scribe. Do try to be a scribe. It is the best experience you're going to get as a pre-med student. It gave me so many things to talk about in my interview. It gave me so much clinical experience. It gave me so much things that so much that I added to my resume that other people couldn't. So sophomore year, I became a scribe. Second semester of sophomore year, I added another club that was like a volunteer club called Texas-thon. You guys might have seen, some of your friends have gone to college, do whatever school it is, like Oklahoma-thon. It's basically you raise money for really sick kids in the hospital center that is around your college. And then junior year, I added studying for the MCAT. So that was its own, it almost like took up all of my time. And then I also added another volunteer project. I started volunteering at the Texas Central Food Bank. And then 6 months into junior year, I added a little bit more to my Texas Central Food Bank projects. I got to know the staff there, so they kind of let me take on more responsibilities. And so I built on the extracurricular activity. And then senior year, I was doing interviews, and so there was nothing more to add to my application. You're already kind of getting started in that med school process. And so I wanted to walk you guys through just like some general advice I wish that I knew going into my undergraduate career. Some things that your pre-med counselors will tell you that are just plainly not true, or some things that they might not tell you that I wish that I knew. Going into interviews, I wish that I knew. So I'm going to start off with academics. So going into undergrad, I had taken, I think 8 AP classes or 9, and I did like 4 or 5s on all those exams, and they did not let me claim credit for any of the science courses or the math courses. And to be honest, I am very grateful that they wouldn't let me, because that helped me get a better GPA, which is how I got into Baylor. Baylor really emphasized GPA. A lot of really good med schools emphasize GPA. So it was really nice to go into college taking a class like AP Chemistry, really correlated with General Chemistry 1 my freshman year. And it was a really good way to ease into college, get used to that new, like, fast-paced learning, that new, you have to figure out how to become a great studier, as I said. And so it was a lot easier to ease into it when I already had a good foundation on chemistry or on biology, and then get a really, really stellar GPA my freshman year. And then since I had those study habits already figured out, I didn't really have this, big worry about not getting bad grades my freshman year. But then I also learned how to become a great studier. And so I was able to carry that through 4 years and end up with I would say a pretty good GPA. Something else about academics that I'll tell you right now. So your pre-med advisors, one of the worst parts of their job is that they can get in trouble if they have a bunch of pre-meds who don't get into medical school. And so you might come into your pre-med office your freshman year with an A-, a pretty good grade, and they're going to try to get you to drop pre-med. Don't do it. They are trying to scare you out of being in the pre-med track, because let's say your A- turns into like a lot, of Bs and then B minuses. They're worried that since you didn't do as stellar your freshman year, that you might not do as stellar in harder classes. And so it looks bad on them if you were pre-med but were not able to get into medical school. Or even, there might be another time where you get a C. I had plenty of friends that got a C their freshman year, sophomore year, even junior year of college, and they are all going to great medical schools. Like, you will be okay. Your pre-med advisor and other people are going to try to tell you to drop out of pre-med. If it's your passion in life, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to be okay. If you have one bad grade, a couple bad grades, you'll be okay. I wanted to talk to you guys also about your extracurriculars. So you'll see a lot of pre-meds kind of say you need to check the boxes. Basically what they're talking about is on your medical school application, you have different categories that you can put in. So first, of course, you have your academics, your GPA, what classes you took, what you majored in, all of that fun stuff. You have your MCAT score, which forget about that right now. Don't think about your MCAT. Don't. And you'll have volunteering, which is, I'll explain in a second. That's actually a very important category. You'll have some clinical experience, and you might have a section for research experience. So when they say you need to check the boxes, they're saying you need to have something in each category. Although I do, it would be great to have something in each category and be able to just be stellar in every single category. You will have weaknesses on your application, and that's okay. If you are not able to get to everything in your undergraduate career that you want to do, that's okay. I never did research. And I'm going to Baylor College of Medicine, which is actually a very research-heavy institution. So there are certain things that you do that are not going to count against you. You're going to have weaknesses on your application, and you're going to have strengths on your application. And so, however, I say this with a grain of salt, because there's some things that are so important that you can't really miss them. You have to do some sort of volunteering project, and it doesn't matter what it is. I started off my volunteering project with volunteering on an animal shelter. Not because I was like, I really want to check the box for this pre-med thing. What do dogs have to do with pre-med? I honestly just wanted to be around dogs because I couldn't have one in college. So, I still was able to write that in my application, and I was almost asked about it at every single interview. They thought it was one of the greatest things that I did, something that wasn't just for pre-med. It was like for the community. So something about volunteering that you want to keep in mind, a couple of things. So in your medical school application, you're going to have clinical volunteering and non-clinical volunteering. So clinical volunteering is you're in a hospital or you're in a hospice care or something like that. And that will be something where it's almost like you would expect a doctor to be involved somewhere in there. So you'll be like, I was a volunteer in a PICU, a pediatric ICU. I don't think I mentioned that when I was explaining my undergraduate career, but I did that for 2 semesters, and it was a great experience, and it added to my clinical volunteering, which is an important category. Although you would think that only pre-med should do just clinical volunteering, non-clinical volunteering is also really important. You will want to do something that shows that you care about the community. You'll want to show that you are not just a doctor, that you're going to be a doctor that is able to go out in the community and make it better. So something that I did was volunteer at Central Texas Food Bank, and they saw that I had not only done something that was like clinically based, I also did something that was like designated to help the community. One more thing about volunteering is a lot of people will get a lot of their volunteering hours by going overseas and doing one of those week-long trips where you're, helping some village in Africa. A lot of my friends did that, or in South America, in, more third world countries. And those volunteering projects are great, but those are not the only ones you're going to want to do. Something about medical school is that they want to see a sort of long like that you did volunteering over months, that you fit it into your busy schedule, because they want people who are going to be able to give up a little bit time each week, each month, instead of someone who just puts in like 1 month of volunteering and then is done, doesn't do any volunteering the rest of their life. Another important category on your medical school application is your clinical hours. So most of my clinical hours came from being a scribe in the emergency room. Another part of my clinical hours came from being a personal care attendant for a woman with muscular dystrophy, which I did my senior year, so it wasn't a part of my medical school application, but it is something that you could do. Other things that you get clinical experience with is shadowing, or even being a receptionist at a ophthalmologist's office. I know a lot of my friends actually got their clinical hours through that. It is pretty important to get those hours, but let's say this, like you got into a research project that was clinically based and you were really, you loved that research project and you didn't get a whole lot of time to shadow. They're not going to turn you down from medical school because you did something else that you're passionate about. I was the opposite, where research is really great to have for medical school, but I fell in love with being in the emergency room as a scribe. I loved shadowing. I was able to do it with multiple doctors, and I was able to take care of that woman with muscular dystrophy. And so I loved my clinical experience, and I did zero research. And I got into medical school. I actually got in a really heavy research institution, so it all ended up being okay. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is that throughout your whole life, you've probably been told, don't be a doctor, by someone. And if you haven't experienced it yet, trust me, you will. I'm lucky that I had supportive parents that I said, yeah, I want to be a doctor. And they're like, great, what do you need to get there? Okay, cool, go do it. However, through my whole life, especially being a woman, they'd ask, oh, don't you want to have a family? Like, what about your kids? Why don't you just be a nurse? Or, something like that. Or you'll have doctors who are very stressed out. They almost regret their decision to go into medicine. They are a little bit, their lives are like a little bit more stressful than it should be. And they'll tell you, don't go into medicine. And there'll be other people too, like your pre-med advisors, who basically tell you that you can't do it, that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough. And you might even hear it from yourself. Don't. Like, if this is something that you want to do in your life, you can do it. I promise you, if you are in this class, you're already doing the right thing. It's very overwhelming. And there'll be a lot of times where you do doubt yourself, but don't. Like, if someone tells you you can't do it, prove them wrong. And yeah. Do you have any questions?
I will have a place at the end of this video for them to definitely ask questions, but great job. And that's such great information. And I love that the scribe worked out for you. And so as a scribe, you just basically wrote down what the doctors had said when they were dealing with a patient. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when I was a scribe, you basically you're like the doctor's little shadow. So you follow around on these like computers, and you had like this big computer on a cart. You would follow them around, and you would type basically everything that the patient, like, so let's say the patient came in with abdominal pain, and the doctor would start asking, why are you here with abdominal pain? Blah, blah, blah. And you get into the story, and you write the entire history of the patient. You write about all their medical problems that they tell you about. You get information from the doctor about like their physical exam. You get to watch them do the physical exam, and they'll like tell you like, all these different physical exam findings. So you end up learning quite a lot just through being in the same room, listening to what the doctor is looking for, listening to the physical exam and what tests they order to test on the patient. And even now into medical school, my first week, there are things that I learned as a scribe that already apply to what I'm doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you said this before we were recording, but what kind of doctor are you pursuing?
Yeah, I want to be an emergency medicine doctor ever since. So a little bit about my shadowing. I actually started shadowing in high school through the medical careers class. And I think it was my second or third person I shadowed was an emergency medicine doctor. I can't remember his name. Michael.
Dr. Hunt?
Dr. Hunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I shadowed Dr. Hunt and I knew I really liked the emergency room. And in my undergrad, I had shadowed a plastic surgeon, anesthesiologist, internal med, and a couple other things. And being a scribe in the ER was still my favorite thing in the whole world. So,
So cool.
I mean, you can find different things in medicine that you like. So if you go shadow someone and you're like, I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life, try another one. Seriously. Like they are so different from each other. There's different personalities, there's different responsibilities, there's different paces, completely different lifestyles. So explore what you want to do maybe. And you don't even need to know that until the end of medical school. So
what's the process of becoming a scribe?
So I applied through Scribe or ProScribe and Scribe America. They're two really nationally known companies, and I ended up getting in with ProScribe. And they had a couple of clinics and emergency rooms that I got to choose between, and I chose emergency because it worked best with my schedule. Another thing you can do is there's a lot of scribe companies that are pretty local to big medical centers. So there's like a big medical center in Austin. And so what they would do is they had one called Robin Healthcare that's really central to Austin. And you wouldn't go into a clinic, which I think you do miss some of like the clinical experience with that. But they do take videos of the patient encounter. And then you basically go into a center and you watch a bunch of videos of doctor and patient encounters and you write the electronic medical record notes for them and then send it back to the doctor. So you do get to see a lot, not as much as being in person, but it's definitely something to look into if you have a big medical school or big medical center near your school.
Cool. I'm, so just to build off what Jodie is saying is, once you watch about the physician assistant, her name's Anna Moore. If you haven't watched that video yet, and I'm just saying this because the kids haven't watched the videos yet. And I don't know what order I'm going to put the videos in yet, but you're definitely one of our top ones so far. So thank you. But she also just talks about being a scribe, and she said that it was such a big part of her when she wanted to apply for PA school. She had originally wanted to go to med school, and then just by talking to people felt that a PA was fit more what she was looking for in life. And I can't say that either path is a bad path. I think just some incredible things. But congratulations to you, Jodie. I think your opportunity to pursue medicine, I look forward, please get that medical degree, but I'm going to beg you to come back to Colorado and practice medicine here, please. That's the plug for Colorado. Plus, that means you forever get to speak in the med class when you live here. And
I can always visit back from Texas, but
okay.
My family's still in Colorado.
There you go. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording. Do you have anything left you want to say?
No, I just hope that you guys have a good year. I know that things are crazy with COVID, but hopefully things will get better. And I hope you guys get into a great undergrad and you love all 4 years. Please make time to have fun in your undergrad. I might have seemed really busy. I still had a lot of fun. So make time. Do make time.
Good deal. I'm going to stop recording, but it'll keep our Zoom going. Okay.
Okay.